Let me talk to you about how to get a Capital One credit limit increase. Don't go anywhere. You're going to love today's conversation. I guarantee it. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sir Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee, or tea, or vodka, and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about how to get a Capital One credit limit increase. And the first thing you can do it online. Okay? You can do it online. All you have to do is you need to log into your online account. You need to choose the Capital One card for which you are requesting the increase, and that is if you have more than one card. And you want to click I want to, and then request credit line increase. Okay, those are the two simple steps you need to take. And you need to enter your total annual income, your employment status, your occupation, how much you will spend monthly on the card, your mortgage or rent payment amount, and your desired credit limits. It's very important to understand that Capital One will check all those things. So, for example, if you enter total annual income, you want to be very precise because they can check that through your pay stubs or your W-2s. Okay, so be honest here. And you will need to confirm the information, and you need to click submit to complete the request. And you should receive a decision in just a few seconds. So if you are approved for a Capital One credit limit increase, the new limits will be effective immediately. So this is very important. So this is the first step. You can do it online. The second step, you can do it in person. So over the phone. So you can call the number at the back of your card, or just call the general customer service number at 1-877-383-4802. Okay, you can also do it at a branch. You can do it at a Capital One branch. Okay, and one thing that's very important to understand that when you call the number on the back of your card, be prepared to answer some questions and have all the required information ready. Okay, you might need to explain why you are requesting more credit. So think of that in advance. Has your income increased? Are you planning a large purchase? What warrants a higher credit line in your situation? Make sure you are not getting more credit in order to take on more debts than you can comfortably afford. This is very important, okay? And so this could seem like a hassle compared to making the request online, but talking to a representative offers an opportunity to personally present your case for the credit limit increase. If you do it online, you'll be taken care of by the algorithm, the Capital One algorithm. So please talk to a person. You can mention your positive payment history and how long you've been a cardholder to improve your approval odds, okay? A higher credit limit could give you more flexibility in your budget and benefits your credit score by decreasing your credit utilization ratio, okay? So each credit card issuer has its own requirements and process. They also have their own processes for credit limit increases. So it's always a great idea to speak to someone if you're interested in raising your Capital One credit limits. Let me talk to you about what you need to do before you apply. So basically, to apply to get the raise you need, apply online or in person, over the phone, or at a branch. But before you apply, you need to do a few things if you want to boost your chances of approval. Very important. So before you apply for a higher credit line with Capital One, there are a few questions you should consider. What is your current credit limits? This is important because before you decide how big of an increase you ask for, make sure you know the current limit on your Capital One credit card. You can easily find this information by logging into your account, or you can calculate the limit by adding your current balance and pending charges to your available credit. So the possible difference between your current credit limits and the increased one may also impact whether the change positively or negatively impact your credit score. Okay, so when you request an increase, some lenders may do a hard inquiry on your credit report that could negatively impact your score. So it's up to you to determine whether the positive change in your credit utilization ratio is worth the potential hit to your score. I mean, the hit could be 5 or 10 points or 20 points. So the first question is, what is your current credit limits? Second question, how much credit do you want? So knowing how much credit you want can help you determine how much you want to ask for. So one thing for sure, it is not impossible to have your credit card, it is not impossible to have your credit limit double, but requesting a 100% increase might not be the best approach. So Capital One will see such a request as an attempt to receive funds you might not be able to pay back. So asking for 10%, 20%, or even 30% more credit may be more reasonable and present a higher chance of approval. Okay, so think about that. The one thing for sure is you need to think about how Capital One determine your original credit limits. You want to consider which factors they pay attention to, and you want to consider which factors have changed in your credit report since they last approved you. And the big question is, are you eligible for an increase? That's the third question here, because Capital One evaluates various criteria when determining whether to grant a credit limit increase or not. So here are a few factors that can help you get approved. You've been using your Capital One card responsibly, so a positive payment history demonstrates that you can manage debt well, so Capital One might be more inclined to extend more credit to you. You've had your Capital One account open for at least 3 months, so the longer you've had your card, the more time you've had to show Capital One that you are a responsible borrower, and it's been over 6 months since your previous credit limit increase. So if you ask for more credit too often, Capital One might interpret it as a red flag, signaling that you might be in dire need of cash. And let's dig a little deeper into eligibility, folks. Very important. So there are a few ways you can get a credit limit increase with Capital One. I've already said that, but one thing you need to understand is that sometimes you don't even have to ask, because you can receive an automatic credit limit increase. Okay, Capital One will automatically increase your credit limits if you use your credit card responsibly. And some Capital One cards, especially those advertised towards customers establishing or building credit, offer the opportunity for an increase after 5 months of on-time payments. Okay, and are all Capital One cards eligible for a credit limit increase? Some accounts are not eligible for increased credit lines upon request. So accounts that are usually ineligible includes new accounts that are opened within the past few months. If you have secure credit cards, you cannot ask for a line increase. And if you have received a credit line increase or decrease over the past 3 to 5 months, also you're not eligible. Okay, and if you want to determine how to establish eligibility, make sure that you constantly make on-time payments, not just with Capital One, with all creditors, because Capital One will check that. Make sure that you make larger monthly payments that pay down your balance, so that you are basically reducing your CUR, your credit utilization ratio. And you also want to learn more about the factors that affect your credit score. As a matter of fact, Capital One has an app called CreditWise that allows you to constantly monitor your credit score for free, of course. And by the way, this CreditWise program, even if you're not a Capital One cardholder, you can still use it. Okay, you also need to think about all the information you need to provide, and make sure that you have your W-2s, your pay stubs, your 1099s if needed, and even your tax returns. Okay, you also might need to provide your monthly mortgage or rent payment, because Capital One wants to see how much you're spending right now on obligations, your DTI, in order to see whether or not by increasing your credit limits they are taking on more exposure or not. Okay, and one thing you need to also understand is that you can always if you have the card with a relative, let's say a spouse, you can always provide the data for both partners or a single partner. Okay, whatever you need to do to increase your chances of approval, please do it. I want to talk a little bit about income, because income plays a quintessential role when it comes to credit limit increase, not only at Capital One but also other credit card issuers. And if you're wondering how to think about income, there are 3 things to think about. So you have personal income, so income you earn including full-time, part-time, or seasonal jobs. self-employment, interest or dividends, retirement, and public assistance. Okay, it's important to understand income because Capital One will make their determination, among other things, on income. So you have personal income, you also have shared income. So this is money from somebody else that is regularly deposited into your individual account or into a joint account that that person shares with you. And then you have optional income. So this includes things like alimony, child support, or separate maintenance income that doesn't need to be included unless you want it to be considered for the credit limit increase process. Okay, and if you're not sure about how to answer the employment question, you can always reach out to Capital One. But generally, when we talk about employment in consideration with a Capital One credit limit increase, you need to understand that employed means that you work full or part-time for a company or a business you don't own. If you're self-employed, it means that you own a business where you work full-time or part-time. Very important. If you're unemployed, it means that you are not currently employed full-time or part-time and don't own a business, even if you are collecting unemployment benefits or public assistance. If you're retired, it means that you no longer work full-time or part-time, but currently have a source of income or are living off of savings or other retirement benefits. If you are a student, you are enrolled in classes full-time, even if you have a full-time job. And in there is another category called other. And if none of the above apply, or if you are unemployed but do have regular access to income from somebody else, you can put other. So big decision time. Which category applies to you? Which section do you fall into? This is very important because you need to specify your income category when applying for a Capital One credit limit increase. Okay, and if somebody else pays your expenses, you can include that also in your income amount. Yes, as long as you are 21 years old and that income is regularly used to pay your expenses, you can certainly do that. Okay, and if you have any question about income and expenses, again, as I said, you can always contact Capital One for more information. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweaty Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation about Capital One credit limit increases, and I want to talk to you now about timing. Timing is important. First of all, how long does a credit line increase take at Capital One? It really depends. If you're requesting the increase online, your limit increase may be approved immediately after you provide some information, such as employment status and annual income. Okay. In other cases, it might take a few days to get a response from the issuer. Now, similarly, if you call to request an increase, a Capital One representative might give you the decision right away or take a few days to review your account. So when you submit your request, the Capital One, they will just review everything. They will review everything in depth, especially if you have an account with them, if you have a deposit account with them, if you have a savings account or checking account with Capital One, they will review all information available to them. In some cases, Capital One can provide a decision immediately if all things are cool, if things are fine, okay? So this is important, and remember that you gotta be patient. If you don't get a response from them right away, you may have to wait up to 30 days. And if approved, your new credit line is available immediately, okay? You don't have to wait. And the thing here is that you can also request a credit line increase for a different Capital One credit card account. So once you're signed into your account, you can request a credit line increase online by choosing the request credit line, but you can do it for 3 or 4 cards. It's really up to you. So big decision time. Let me ask you a question. Number 1, do you currently meet the requirements needed for this Capital One credit line increase? Number 2, are you looking for are you in a rush? In other words, can you wait up to 30 days just in case you're not approved immediately? Can you wait a couple of days before receiving approval? This is important because if not, you need to start thinking about other options. Okay, and what if you are rejected? Have you thought about a backup plan? It's important because nothing is guaranteed. Capital One is a credit card issuer, and they might decide to approve or deny your your application for a credit limit increase. So you need to have an idea of what to do in terms of if you are rejected. So speaking of rejection, what to do? There are several things you can do. First thing first, if you have been denied, don't worry. Capital One will explain to you what happened, why they can't approve you at this time. But number one, you want to work on your credit. So you want to pay down debts, you want to make on-time payments, and you want to use your credit cards responsibly, okay? A higher credit score and a clean credit report improve your odds of getting approved, whether you are seeking more credit on your existing cards or applying for a new one. Okay, and you need to sign up for those services that offer free credit monitoring all year long. You can go with the Capital One's own Credit Wise, or you can sign up for Credit Karma or Nerd Wallet or Wallet Hub. So those are great services. They're free. You can also sign up for a website called annualcreditreport.com. And this site allows you to have access to your credit reports once a year. And I'm talking here about all the 3 credit reports, okay? Your credit history also is taken into account. So Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax will provide the data that you need. So work on your credit. Number 2, you want to apply for a different credit card. Yeah, if you're looking for extra cash to make a large purchase, or you're just looking for extra money, and Capital One cannot give it to you, well, look for another credit card. And the card can be from a different issuer. Okay, if your credit score is not in the best shape, you can look into credit cards for bad credit or credit cards for fair credit to avoid another denial. So those with good or excellent credit, another credit card can offer more purchasing power as well as a chance to continue improving credits. Because remember that a diversity, if you have a good mix of credit, this accounts for 10% of your credit score. And this is also important. This can be consequential, okay? And remember that a credit card application will trigger a hard inquiry, though, that can knock off a few points. They can knock a few points off your credit score, but 5, 10 points or 20 points if you already have a 700, if you're already in the 700s or 800s, this is really not a bad thing. You can also try a balance transfer. If you are considering a credit limit increase because you've gotten too close to the credit limit on your card, you might want to look into a balance transfer. With the balance transfer credit card, you can transfer balances from existing cards and not pay anything in interest for a few months. So 0% APR periods offered by balance transfer cards can range from 6 to 18 months, and we've seen cases where they went all the way to 21 months. All right, folks. So here is a recap. So I was explaining to you how to request a Capital One increase, how to request a Capital One credit limit increase. So you can do it online, you can do it in person. But there are things you need to pay attention to before you apply. You need to think about eligibility, your income level, the timing, and the rejection, what you need to do if you are rejected. Okay? Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.